I'm the bad guy. I'm the bad.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Across the Gridiron. I am Matt and I am here as always by our good friend Eddie Ekwer, where we are going to finally preview the Super Bowl. Now, we have the eagle-eyed views of you, so eagle-eyed ones of you may have noticed that we haven't actually been on for a couple of weeks, and that's because between both me and Eddie, we have picked the worst time to get ill for an NFL podcast. But we are both fighting at about maybe sort of 50% at the moment. So, Eddie, first of all, how are you feeling, my friend? Are you back to full fitness yet?
Not yet. It's been a rough ride on the sidelines. What I could have done with an NFL doctor, that NFL TLC, how they patch the players up, before you know what's happening there. No time, they're up and running. But we simply don't have that kind of money.
I mean, it could be, Eddie, and I don't want to talk for you necessarily, but it could be that actually these guys are probably built differently than we are, and are probably as highly tuned, well-paid athletes are probably just more. I need to get on with it than you and I, two men in their 40s who, if soon as you get a cold, no, I'm done. Straight to bed.
It's probably true. No arguments, from me on that one. But yes, to be fair, they probably get on with it. Yeah, I mean, you kind of think about the lives that they must live, the cold baths, all of that strict diet and time at the gym and getting hit at 30 miles an hour by some other dude wearing metal clothing.
There are clubs in Sheffield where you could do exactly that if you wanted to, Eddie, I'm sure. What a way to kick off our Super Bowl preview. But yeah, look, I mean, we didn't get obviously a chance to even review the championship matches, which was pretty bad, obviously, on our behalf, but it is what it is. So what we're going to try and do in this sort of episode is we're not going to do an hour-long episode because those, if you can actually have ears, can tell that I can barely talk right now. But what we're going to do, we're going to talk a little bit about the championship games, give maybe a quick 5-10 minutes on each of those. And so I'll certainly talk about the teams who won. We'll talk about how excited we are, obviously, give a little bit of a preview for the Super Bowl, but then we'll focus actually more today on the Seahawks, and we'll do an episode later in the week where we'll focus more on the New England Patriots, just to try and spread it out and try and give us each team as much attention as we can do. And we're hoping that actually when it comes to doing our Patriots episode, we're going to get joined by our friend Matt Matejk, who joined us at the beginning of the season to give a little preview of the Patriots and talk about how excited he was for the new season. So we're going to get a very smug American joining us hopefully later in the week.
Back.
Absolutely. But look, let's if we're going to focus on the Seahawks for most of this episode, let's rewind and actually focus on the AFC Championship match first. Obviously, it was the Patriots who beat the Denver Broncos 10-7 in a very weather affected game. I think it's fair to say. And obviously all the talk going into this game was a Broncos quarterback, with Bo Nix being out for the game. The Broncos actually started well. Took them to through an early touchdown, which everyone's like, oh wow, okay, fair enough, this is we could have a game on our hands here. But the Patriots slowly wore them down. They got ahead 10-7, and I'm missing out a lot of the story of the game here. But by the time the snow came, and boy, did the snow come in this game, it effectively neutralized the game. And by that time, the Patriots are 10-7 up, and the Patriots are once again at the Super Bowl. But Eddie, I thought this was a fascinating game just to watch, and like, how the hell are they playing a professional sport in this weather? But what did you make of this game?
Yeah, I mean, the weather was a huge factor in this game. We've been waiting for the weather to play a factor in a lot of these playoff games, and it hadn't seemed like it was going to make an appearance. But it left it to the AFC Championship, and boy, did it make an appearance. It felt like one of those aging videos, like those videos where they'll put a camera in a place and then they'll kind of fast forward, and then you sort of see the place in dry land, in rain, and then snow. But all of that happened usually is like over a couple of years. You kind of see the trees grow and die and all of that. This one, it felt like that field kind of compressed the time. In an NFL game, it went from being completely dry. Well, no, it wasn't dry, but you be able to see the field, see people in the crowd and everything. So people were slipping and sliding and all of that, and as soon as that happened, it was going to be about the team that was the smartest. It wasn't going to be about the best team on the pitch. It wasn't going to be about touchdowns and bomb throws and highlight reels. It was just going to be who's ever going to outsmart each other. And you almost felt like there was a ghost of Bill Belichick on the sidelines, for the Patriots, because there was some dark art stuff that Mike Vrabel was doing in that game, right? There was a particular series where he literally didn't want the ball to do anything. So kind of handed the ball off and then literally threw the ball away so that he could punt it back to the Broncos. I was like, yeah, you have it. I've got my 10 points. Let's see what you guys are going to do. Let's see if you guys can move the ball. And no, they could not. And I thought it was very smart coaching and smart, taking the points when you get it. And it's one of those things over the season that, you see lots of times, we talk about coaches that are always fourth down, monsters or fourth down machines, where you get to the 25, the 15, and you're like 4th and 2, and like, do I take 3 points or I try and go for it, get nothing. And I think, the Broncos are going to regret, not going for that field goal when they had the opportunity to do so.
No, absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, for those who didn't see the game, this is at a time when Denver were 7-0 up. Yeah. And I can't remember how close they were to the red zone, but they had an opportunity at 4th down where I think it was at 4th and 1, something like that.
It was 4th and it was 4th and short. I don't think it was more 3 or so yards.
But definitely within field goal range. And rather than take the 3 points, theoretically take the 3 points and go 10-0 up, they go for it, they're aggressive, and they don't make it. So the ball gets turned over. And I think, to your point, I understand being brave at 4th down, but this is the championship game. You've got not a rookie quarterback, but you've got an inexperienced quarterback on there. You're already 7-0 up. Take the 3 points, keep the momentum going, and make it a 2-score game. But I mean, obviously, look, the way that the weather came down, no one really would have expected it to come down like that. Yeah. But if they had those points in, it's you're putting the pressure back on New England to score those 2 points. And look, who knows? I mean, at the end of the day, the Patriots still got 10 points anyway. But I thought that was, at the time I was watching, that is such a bizarre call. Regular season, fine. But even a championship game with a novice quarterback, I thought it was such a bizarre call.
Yeah, I mean, and to be fair, right, there will be someone that was sat up in the booth, some clever guy with analytics, who would have said, go for it, right? Because it's what they do in the NFL. It's I mean, it's not the first time, that teams have done this, right? You think about it, the Bears in the Bears and the Rams game in this very, run to the Super Bowl in the divisional round, just the same of the week before, Chicago, I think they faced the 4th and 2 early in the game against the Rams in the divisional round. And instead of taking the field goal, they went for it. And Caleb Williams threw an interception.
Yeah.
So it's that's just the beautiful thing, about the NFL, that sometimes one team just thinks, I'm better than you guys. I'm not going to learn from someone else. Because it's not us. We're just better. We can just execute better. And all of that. So yeah, lots of regrets, for the Broncos, and you could tell from the fan reaction, they were really, really disappointed, and everyone was saying, well, maybe if Bo Nix was around, maybe it would have been a different story.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. I mean, Stidham, threw a few interceptions, and I guess when you're a backup quarterback, you're not good enough to recover from throwing interceptions like that.
Yeah.
But Patriots strike again. It's just the Patriots strike again. You could see all the makings. So that's why I was thinking like Belichick ghosts just hanging around, because it just had all those dark, magic kind of stuff that used to happen when Brady was around, where the other team would just do something inexplicable. The quarterback goes down, the coaching. I mean, this is Sean Payton, for crying out loud. All of a sudden has like one of those moments where he just I think he will look at that and regret that. And of course, he came out of that game firing everybody afterwards.
Yeah.
The OC left, fired the OC just because people were saying that, well, why do you fire the OC? I mean, you call the plays, right? But clearly people were upset, about that. And then he started having a go at his quarterback, talking about the surgeries that the quarterback may or may not have had. Things were falling apart, for the Broncos after that game.
Came out swinging.
Yeah. Patriots, fair play. Super Bowl, another one. Who would have thought so soon?
No, absolutely. And I think that, like I said, we're going to talk about the Patriots more later in the week, with hopefully with Matt. But Mike Vrabel's done a fantastic job, absolutely. And this was his game, wasn't it? Being defensively solid, making an interception, which albeit from a bad throw, but making an interception, just controlling the game in the adverse weather, and doing it their way. And we can't now say that they haven't played anyone good, which is what we had said in the regular season. They had a really easy run in, but they've put a very good Denver team down. The Denver defense, although the defense is really well, when you've got a failing offense, you keep coming back onto the defense, kept coming back on the field every single time. And obviously they just couldn't keep up the relentless pressure that they've done. And you're right, the Patriots march on. Will this be they'll be fighting for number 7? But let's talk about the team now who are going to be in their way, and let's talk about the Seattle Seahawks, because again, even though the Seahawks went into playoffs as number 1 seed, part of me is still surprised that the Seattle Seahawks are making the Super Bowl. They beat the Rams, who I think we both favored. I believe it felt like 6 weeks ago. I think we both picked the Rams to win the game.
They were the Rams,
yeah, because I think ultimately we said we would trust the Rams offense more than we would trust the Seattle offense, and we were both wrong. Seattle came through, and they marched on to Philadelphia as well. So again, Eddie, it feels like 6 months ago this game actually happened. But what did you think about this NFC game?
I love the story about this game. This game was, for me, one of the best examples of the NFL story. And I am sure that there's some Hollywood actor, director, script writer. They're already writing the script. That someone is already doing the story. And of course, the story is about Sam Darnold. I think they're going to make a movie, about this guy, because the story is just too incredible, for people not to want to tell it. and all the different dimensions, that have happened, to get him to the Super Bowl, something that there is nobody, and I mean nobody, NFL experts, past players, analysts, whatsoever. There is no one at the start of the season that would have said that Sam Darnold will be in the Super Bowl. Nobody.
Nope.
And I think we called it very early when we're talking about the fact that Sam Darnold wasn't getting a lot of respect, despite what he was doing, not even getting mentioned in the MVP race, none of all of that stuff. But Sam Darnold played the best game that he's ever played, and one of the things that people had, with throwing at Sam Darnold was obviously what happened to the Vikings. They had that incredible season where, it was 13, and all of that wins. And then the playoffs, he played his worst game, and everyone was like, well, this is Sam Darnold for you. He just does not do it, in the big games. But, he went out there 3 touchdowns. Sam Darnold played in that game, no interception, which is very, very important. Making the key passes. And you would have thought, Sam Darnold was the other quarterback on the other side. We're talking about Matthew Stafford, right? Someone who's actually drawn this journey before and been to the Super Bowl. Again, another quarterback but had a slightly different, narrative around him, because people were like, yes, he's good, just been in a bad situation, bad team, and all of that. And now he's with a good coach, and now see what he can do. But no one gave, Sam Darnold anything. So 346 yards in that game was incredible. And the other thing, in that game was the game was competitive. It was close, right? And it could have gone anywhere. And I think that the fact that there wasn't a mistake that Sam Darnold made, to swing the game in the direction of the Rams, I think was very telling, because I think a lot of people were looking for that, and we're waiting to write the narrative of, oh, there you go again. All Sam Darnold needed to do was play a clean ball, and then the Seattle Seahawks would be in the Seahawks. But what the Seahawks have done is they've managed to look at all the components of their team. You've got Kenneth Walker, the running back, and he's doing what he's supposed to do. Then you've got Jackson Smith and Jigba, over 1,700 yards, in terms of reception. And I think we also called this earlier on, in our very, very early snap judgment, when we talked about, Jason being the best offensive player, even better than, all the wide receivers, because he started on a hot streak. If you remember, first couple of games, he was doing 100 yards, every game. And people were like, what's going on? Is it sustainable? And all of that. And boy, was he sustainable? And health is everything in the NFL. So touch wood, you stay healthy. But he was healthy. And then you add Cooper Kupp, into that. This playoffs, I think he's had about 90-something yards. He's had a touchdown. He's been a complementary piece, to Jackson Smith and Jigba. So if you're thinking, oh, well, you can kind of like, bracket Jackson Smith, Jigba, take him out of the game, then you've got Cooper Kupp, who's also a start as well, coming in and doing stuff. And then you've got that defense who, if you might be thinking, okay, who are the big stars, right? You might remember DeMarcus Lawrence, who used to play for the Dallas Cowboys. That kind of
just checking, and that is 19 minutes it took, pretty much on the dot, till we got a Dallas Cowboys reference. That's probably the longest you've gone, Eddie. So congratulations.
It's probably the longest. As soon as I said, I was like, oh, damn it, he's gonna say it now.
Oh yeah.
It's gonna say that. But I mean, that defense, right, has just been electric, allowing, less than 20 points per game all season, best in the NFL. And you've got guys like Leonard Williams, Byron Murphy, just disrupting things in the interior. And then this linebacker, Ennis Jones, the fourth, has just been a revelation, right? Just been a revelation. And then as a rookie as well, I think he got that Tom Brady's LFG defensive award, I think, in the game or something like that. But listen, his name is Nick something. Imawari, I think. Probably not saying his name right. But honestly, and then you crown it up, Mike McDonald. What a first year debut as a coach.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Best scoring defense, and rebooted their pass rush, and it's just unlocked something in Sam Darnold. And you've got to say that he has to take a huge amount of praise and kudos for what has happened with the Seahawks. Because I don't think that this happens without him, and nobody talks about him. Nobody's like, mentioning him or anything like that. And he'll be delighted because it just keeps the pressure off, and everyone is still probably thinking, getting caught up by the Patriots. And we're going to talk about the Patriots and all of that. But you got to give some love, to the Seattle Seahawks, because they played, an entertaining game, and they have been entertaining the whole season. They've been scoring points. They've not been like, those games where you're like, a 10, 3-0 kind of game, or, they've gone out there and they've put points on the board, right? And their defense has just locked things down. So if this becomes a shootout, we kind of know what's going to happen, in this game. But yeah, you got to say, Seattle Seahawks, they're looking good, looking good.
No, you're right. I mean, defensively, they've been magnificent sort of all season. I suppose the question I would have for you is, you talk about Darnold. I don't think Darnold's gone under the radar, right? Because he does get talked about a lot. A lot of the time, it's talking about almost like the Cinderella story, and how he's been rejected from a lot of teams. He didn't get paid at Vikings last year, despite how well he did for them. He winds up here, and he winds up at Seattle, and he's taken them to a Super Bowl. I suppose the question I would have is, do you still trust him enough to protect the football against a really good defense like the Patriots? Now, I say that because there's only two quarterbacks this season has thrown more interceptions than Sam Darnold. Geno Smith at the Raiders and Tua at Miami. That's it. So Darnold has been guilty of throwing interceptions, but they're still in the regular season. They were the 8th best team in terms of passing offense in the league. So I'm not saying they're a team driven purely by defense. Darnold has had a good season, but he has given the ball away a lot. He has turned it over quite a number of times. Do you think that will count against him or count against Seattle?
I don't know, because when I watch the game, right, and they always say that every interception is not the same, right? And sometimes the numbers can skew things, and sometimes numbers are the numbers. If you're talking about Jameis Winston, we know when you see the 30 interception and 30 touchdowns, that he's thrown them to the other team, literally. And he's had 14 interceptions, Sam Darnold. But I think that if you consider the way that they've played, right, pushing the ball down the field, right, it's not been like a conservative sort of offense. I mean, they've been top 10 offense. I can't remember exactly what their number is, but he throws the ball down the field as well. So I kind of accept that that when you throw the ball down the field, every so often something is going to happen that with probability that the other team is going to come down with the ball. So I would feel differently if he was having lots of fumbles, right? It was having lots of fumbles, and he was just like throwing those very, daft interception when the guy's like, 5-10 yards away from you, and you're like, you throw it to the guy and like, what are you doing? What are you seeing? And I think that, it doesn't come bigger than playing in the, in the playoffs. The playoffs comes with the pressure. And with his history, you would have thought this is the time to fold. So he's played a good playoffs, played a clean game in the NFC Championship. Now, of course, the Patriots defense are a different kind of defense. Let's be clear. But I think that, like they say, that a quarterback's best friend is a running back, and he's got a stud running back. And I think that this coach has been smart about situationally putting Sam Darnold in the right place to win. So I'm sure when they come out in that Super Bowl, the first couple of plays, hand the ball over, let him settle into the Super Bowl, maybe throw a quick check down here and there, 5 yards, 10 yards, nothing too crazy. Let him feel himself back into the game. And then you can now open the playbook and be like, right, go hit Jackson Smith and Jigba. Go hit Cooper Kupp, for 20, 30 yards. So I think that you can trust him. And I know I say that now, and he can go ahead and throw 3 interceptions,
slinging interceptions
all over the place in the Super Bowl.
You get the ball, and you get the ball. Here's a pick six.
And of course, that can happen, right? We've seen players, going to Super Bowl and kind of do weird stuff. Jimmy Garoppolo, comes to mind. But I think that, because for me, I think psychologically, when you look across the other side, you're not seeing an out of the wall quarterback, right? It's not like Patrick Mahomes is on the other touchline, right? That adds to the pressure and the nerve to like perform. Like every time you have the ball, you're thinking, ooh, I need to score, right? I need to do something because, hey, it's Patrick Mahomes, right? Is on the other side. It's Josh Allen is on the other side. It's Joe Burrow is on the other side. But he's going to look at Drake May and say, well, hey, I feel like, we're very similar players. I mean, Drake May might, eventually become a much better player because it's still early on in his career. But I think right now you can kind of say, well, in terms of play performance and all of that, well, are they similar? He's not going to be looking at Drake May and saying, ooh, I need to perform here.
Yeah, I mean, you've on the other side in Drake May, you've got a young quarterback in his very first Super Bowl, and I'm sure it won't be his last Super Bowl, but it's his first, and it's how do you respond to that? Do you does the pressure take over, or is, as Alan Shearer once said, pressure's for tires? Not these players don't feel pressure. So yeah, it would be interesting. I mean, you look at the base stats in terms of yards, Patriots were the 3rd best offense this season. All right. Behind, I will say it, behind the Cowboys. There you go. I'll give you a mention. The Seahawks were joint 7th, in total offensive yardage. But in terms of the actual quarterbacks, in terms of passing yards, Patriots were 4th, Seahawks 8th. And when you look at passing touchdowns, they were even further down. They weren't even in the top 10. For that, whereas the Patriots were. So you could look at that a number of different ways. But I think in both teams, their strength is their defense, without question. So this will be I don't think this is going to be an absolute barnstorming end-to-end Super Bowl, personally. I think it'll be quite attritional, right? I think it's going to be defense will be on top for a lot of this game, as these two quarterbacks feel each other out. It's not like, for example, if you had the Bills and the Rams, where you've got, say, Allen and Stafford just slinging the ball down the field at every opportunity. This is going to be quite attritional. And it's really hard to call. I'm not going to make a call on who wins this now, by the way. I'm going to have a think about it and come back.
I mean, there is the makings of that. I mean, you can kind of look at the last time that they had a game that they didn't put up a lot of numbers was the game against San Francisco. The last game of the season. I think that game ended 13-3 in favor of the Seattle Seahawks. But I think that I think the defense are good, but I think that the offense of the Seattle Seahawks is just better.
Yeah.
I think the offense of the Seahawks is just better. And listen, Sam Darnold has a record that only Tom Brady has, right? And so he has to consider himself in really, really good company, right? He's the only other quarterback after Tom Brady to win back-to-back NFL season 14+ games. No other quarterback, has done that other than Tom Brady, and Sam Darnold second, in consecutive NFL seasons. So I don't think he will be feeling inferior, about anything. He will, honestly, I think that when they do the movie, about Sam Darnold, because I know they're going to do a movie, Hollywood doesn't pass up, an opportunity to make some of that moolah, from a great story. People are going to talk about the internal, fortitude that he must have, to be able to pull himself to where he is right now. It's a good underdog story.
Yeah, and to be fair, I just want to clarify one thing that I said as well about the number of interceptions. It is also fair to say he has thrown the third highest interceptions during the regular season, sorry. But it's also fair to say that he hasn't thrown one in the playoffs so far. Right. So that's I will give him I will give him his dues there. Okay, so look, we're both based in the UK. We know it's going to be a late night show for us, but I'm assuming, Eddie, you are going to be trying to stay up and watching it. Do you have any kind of Super Bowl rituals or stuff you do on Super Bowl Sunday? What do you do?
So usually I try and get a bit of a nap, get a nap in, it's
said like a true old man there. Congratulations.
get a nap in somewhere along the line, maybe sometime between that sort of 4:35, 6 o'clock, get a nap in, and then you wake up maybe sort of about 8, and start to build up to the Super Bowl. And then always good to get a few healthy snacks, get some crackers in.
God, you are so old.
Get some crackers in, some maybe some protein bars, and get a couple of popcorn. You always want to have popcorn, right? For the Super Bowl. So I always like to get some popcorn in, and I'll probably be in my office. That TV will be on, and then I'll probably have something showing up, as well. Maybe watching 2 different broadcasts, just to kind of get a bit of a flavor of the of what's going on.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, a few times, I've gone out to go watch it.
I was going to ask if you were going to go out, or if you're going to watch it at home.
Yeah, I've gone out to the bar to go watch it, and I've gone to some friends' house to go watch it. But I think this time around, probably I'm going to be at home to watch this one, because I mean, it's like we said before. This is the one Super Bowl in a long time that I really don't care who wins. I have no hatred towards any of the teams right now. Every other Super Bowl, I had something about one of the teams. Last year was the Eagles, of course, couldn't stand them, and they of course won the Super Bowl. And then other times, 49ers have got to the Super Bowl. They beat the Cowboys on their way there, so I wasn't having that. So it's been some kind of hate watch, about a team in the Super Bowl. This time around, none of the teams played the Cowboys, so no revenge energy around. It's all about the love of the game, so I'll be looking forward to the Super Bowl and Bad Bunny.
Well said. As a Dolphins fan, I've every Super Bowl that I've ever watched has always been a neutral one because we can't even, we haven't even won a playoff game since 2000. So I don't think we haven't won a Super Bowl, a playoff game since I've been a fan. So that's how long it's been. So yeah, I mean, I'll probably end up watching at home too. There is a bar not too far from me in Sheffield that does stay open late, and it shows a lot of the American sport. It will show the Super Bowl. It will show like WrestleMania. It will show all these things that are certainly too late for us to. Well, it's one of the only bars that will still be open at Sunday at that time, I imagine. So I might see if there's space for me to go down, but none of my friends are really into NFL apart from your good self, Eddie. So I don't think anybody else will be daft enough to stay up till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday before having to go to work on a Monday morning to go down with me. But other than that, I'll probably be watching it at home, trying to stay awake, probably failing miserably, but making sure I record it so I can watch it in the morning. That's kind of that'll be my routine. And yeah, I said I'm interested in Bad Bunny as well. And because to be honest, anything that pisses off the president of the United States is all right in my book. So I am all that. As long as Nicki Minaj are going to be there, but we don't want to get too satirical in this podcast.
Yeah, do you know what? I am very curious about the Bad Bunny performance, and there has been some interesting halftime performance in the Super Bowl. Everyone remembers the Janet Jackson. That's always one that's up there.
Well, I don't think a Bad Bunny nipple slip will be quite as controversial this year. To be honest,
no, but Trump might not like that either. And so,
I bet he like Janet Jackson's the dirty. Anyway,
yeah. So yeah, I mean, who's been your Super Bowl halftime performance that you really kind of like, look back and thought, was
for me the best one. The best one for me, without question, was the Eminem Dre one from a couple of years ago, because obviously those guys were just certainly growing up. That was like sort of my introduction really to proper sort of rap music, and I thought that performance was superb. A lot of the time, I'm not as fussed about some of them. I thought the Kendrick one last year was brilliant, but it was just so topical, and I just love the fact everyone was waiting for one song. The whole thing was waiting for one song. Like, oh my god, he's finally doing that song, and then they're waiting for one line. Oh my god, I can't believe he said that line. But I thought that was a good one. But yes, a lot of them is just okay. Now it's interesting. Yeah, fast forward, or that's when my toilet break is. But yeah, no. So I think it will. I'll be intrigued to see it. I mean, Bad Bunny is not someone you hear too much in the UK. Let's be honest, right? I might be completely wrong by this, but I don't think he's the biggest recording artist here in the UK. But he's absolutely massive in America. Of course, he's massive. He's huge in Latin America, and he is legitimately one of the biggest stars in the world. But this is showing my age, as when he first started, doing guest appearances on WWE and appearing in shows. I'm like, who the hell is Bad Bunny? But again, but so again, I'm a white guy who at the time was in his like late 30s. I'm probably not his core demographic, to be perfectly honest. But I've listened to a few of his stuff. I think he's an incredibly talented guy. So I am curious to see what it's like, and if he comes out with a F Ice t-shirt, I think that would be brilliant.
Yeah, that might be on the card. Someone might be putting some gambling on, on those showing up. But yeah, I mean, I'm same with you. I had no clue who he was. I was just like, who the heck is he, and all of that. And Super Bowl, gosh, how did that happen? But fair play to him. He's done himself very proud. I think for me, the Super Bowl halftime show that I really loved was a Katy Perry one. And I think it was probably 2015. Katy Perry Super Bowl performance. I think this is the one that Missy Elliott, came out. She hadn't been making any appearances for a long time. And so to get Missy Elliott, show up in a halftime performance with Katy Perry was just was good. For us, hip hop, R&B, fans. That it was good to see Missy Elliott, show up, and Katy Perry, she's got that, performance thing, locked down. And I know people might talk about Beyonce, and all of that, and of course it was the MJ one in California, Super Bowl a couple of years ago. Back then, that was pretty good. I think Justin Timberlake as well. Always had one, that's why, I mean, personally, I do like Justin Timberlake, so I'm a little bit partial to him too as well. But yeah, there's been some good ones.
No, absolutely, and it's the one thing that it's one of the many things that those guys do really well in the NFL is they know how to put on a show, don't they? So yeah, look, I think that'd be great. But I think let's end the podcast there. This has been the Pop Review podcast with a little bit of NFL thrown into it for good measure. But yeah, look, so we're going to be back this week, later this week. We'll do more of a bit of a deeper dive into the Patriots, to give them their sort of flowers and talk about them and what we think of their chances are. And Eddie, we might even give our predictions at some point in during that episode as well. But for now, Eddie, glad you're back on the men. It's been great chatting with you, and as always, take us home.
Yeah, so this is it. We've done all the dance, we've been doing all the foreplay, ready for the Super Bowl. This has been it, all year we've been building up, to this event, the Super Bowl game. And it's not going to disappoint. I'm looking forward to it, guys. It's the crowning effort for so many people. And I'm hoping it's a crowning effort for us as well, on this show, because, we've had a long year, from the off season, all up until now. So I think it's a good time to really appreciate everyone that has been, hanging with us, listening to us, showing up and listening to our stuff, sharing it with other people as well. So really, really appreciate all of you. Keep doing that, hitting that like and subscribe button, and getting involved in the conversation as well. Appreciate you guys, and continue to grow this thing into the next season. But we've got another show, Super Bowl, and obviously we're going to come back and then we'll do react to the Super Bowl as well. So check out our other videos on the channel, and we'll see you across the gridiron.
I'm the bad guy. I'm the